Summary of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The wealthy Mr. Bingley's arrival at the estate of Netherfield Park makes a lot of noise in the neighbouring village of Longbourn, which is within close proximity to the estate. In the Bennet family, Mrs. Bennet really wants Bingley to marry one of her 5 daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, or Lydia. When Bingley meets Jane at a ball, he seems to fall in love with her right away. Darcy, Bingley's haughty friend, is rude to Elizabeth, though. Over the next few social events, Jane and Bingley become closer, and Darcy, despite being against it, starts to like Elizabeth's beauty and cleverness. Jane gets sick on the way to see Bingley because she gets caught in the rain and has to stay at Netherfield. Elizabeth goes to Netherfield to take care of Jane. Even though Caroline, Bingley's sisters, are rude and insulting to her because she wants Darcy for herself, Darcy grows closer to Elizabeth. On the other hand, Elizabeth still thinks he's a snob. At the same time, Mr. Collins, a haughty minister who is Mr. Bennet's cousin and heir, goes to see the Bennets to find a daughter who can marry. Around the same time, the Bennet sisters meet Wickham. Elizabeth finds him charming, and he says Darcy has hurt him in the past. Elizabeth's dislike of Darcy grows stronger. When they go to a ball at Netherfield soon after, Mrs. Bennet says something that makes Darcy mad. She thinks that Jane and Bingley are going to get married soon. Collins then asks Elizabeth to marry him, but she says no, which makes her mother mad but makes her father happy. Collins then asks Charlotte Lucas, Elizabeth's friend, to marry him. Charlotte says yes, but not because she needs love but because she wants to feel safe. Bingley leaves for London on business without warning, and Caroline writes to Jane to let her know that they will not be coming back and that her brother is going to marry Darcy's sister Georgiana. Jane is heartbroken. Elizabeth is sure that Darcy and Caroline are putting Bingley and Jane apart on purpose. Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner, the sisters' aunt and uncle, invite Jane to London so that she can get over her loss. But when she gets there, Caroline turns her down, and Jane feels bad that she let herself fall in love with Bingley. When Elizabeth goes to see Charlotte and Mr. Collins, she meets Lady Catherine, who is Collins' supporter and a relative of Darcy. She is rich and dangerous. When Darcy gets there, he shocks Elizabeth by going for long walks with her. But she gets mad when she finds out that Darcy told Bingley not to marry Jane. Darcy tells her he loves her and wants to marry her without realizing it. Elizabeth says no to his proposal because she thinks he will ruin Jane's marriage and treat Wickham badly. Darcy writes in a letter that he stepped in because he thought Jane didn't really love Bingley. He writes that Wickham is dishonest and lies. Elizabeth starts to think that she misread Darcy and may have been hasty when she turned him down. When Elizabeth gets home, she finds that Lydia is in love with Wickham. When she tells her father about it, he doesn't do anything. Soon, Elizabeth goes on a trip with the Gardiners. Elizabeth goes on the trip and sees Pemberley, Darcy's beautiful home. She imagines herself as his wife there, and she is even more impressed when he shows up out of the blue and introduces her to his lovely sister Georgiana. Bingley shows up too, and he tells Jane that he still loves her. Jane sends Elizabeth a letter telling her that Lydia has run away with Wickham, which ends her trip. The Bennets look for Lydia in London because they are afraid of a scandal that will ruin the futures of all their girls. Wickham wants his bills to be paid off before he will marry Lydia when Mr. Gardiner finds them. The Bennets think that Gardiner gives in because Lydia and Wickham will be back soon as the happy newlyweds. Mrs. Bennet is glad that at least one of her children is married. Elizabeth soon finds out that Darcy, not Gardiner, put Wickham's problems behind him because he loved her. Bingley and Darcy go back to Netherfield, where Bingley finally asks Jane to marry him. Lady Catherine sees Elizabeth and tells her not to marry Darcy while Darcy is in London on business. Elizabeth won't make a promise. He asks Elizabeth to marry him again when he gets back. She tells him that her bias against him made her blind, and this time she agrees. Darcy admits that he was rude because he was proud. Both couples are married, and the Bennet family is happy for their girls.
About the author. Jane Austen was born on December 16, 1775, in Steventon, Hampshire. Even though her parents were English gentry, they were still not very wealthy. Jane Austen was too humble to believe how great her writing was, but she did write some of the most famous books in English history, such as Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, and Persuasion. Her books were released without her name on them until after she died, when it was revealed that she was the author. In Austen's time, it wasn't unheard of for women to write under their own names, but it wasn't common either. Although her books are about the complicated routines of courtship and marriage in the British middle class, Austen never got married.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.